Hi everyone, and welcome to part 3 of my watercolor Christmas card series. Today we're painting 3 more Christmas cards, so let's get right into it. With the first card, I'm painting another tree branch, so if you watched my first Christmas card tutorial, I did some kind of a similar card pattern, but I wanted this one to be more of a branch rather than a pine tree branch. So basically you're going to take brown watercolor and create these jagged lines to insinuate and basically paint on a branch. And once you've painted on the branch, you can paint on some red berries. I'm not really sure what kind of tree or plant this is, but you see them commonly during Christmas time, and it looks Christmassy, so that's what I went with. And then I went ahead and I started painting on the or hanging from my branch. You can definitely trace an object if you prefer, but I just free-handed the circles. And I wanted to create a galaxy look in the 2 ornaments. So the first one, I made it more of a bluish gradient, so I went from applying water in the center, fading into light blue, fading into darker blue, fading into black. And then I did the same thing with a second green ornament. I just thought that the blue and the green would complement the red berries on the branch really nicely, given that, you know, green and red are holiday colors. And then I did the same thing, so I kind of applied a layer of water in the center, followed by light green, dark green, and then black. I believe I applied 2 layers in total until I was happy with the opacity of the ornaments, but you can apply as many layers as you would like depending on the quality of your watercolor paint. As always, I've linked the paint that I use in the description as well as all of the supplies if you're interested. Once your ornaments have completely dried, you can take a black pen or a fine tip black marker and then paint on the little hooks that connect the ornaments to the trees, as well as the little metal pieces that attach to the hook. And if you choose, you can also paint on some designs on the ornaments to make them look a little bit fancy, or you can write a holiday greeting instead. Moving on to the second card, we're going to be painting a Christmas tree, sort of the top half close up. So this is again similar to the tree branch that I painted in my very first Christmas card tutorial for this year, so you can definitely go check that out. I explain this part a little bit more in depth, but basically what you're doing here is you're painting lines that are going to be your tree branches, and then you paint these really thin lines coming from those lines that stem from the main sort of, trunk of your pine tree. And I'm using, I believe, a size 1 Grombacher brush to achieve the little bristles. So I've linked that in the description if you're interested in adding this paintbrush to your collection. I think it's excellent for detail work. But anyways, I'm using sort of a green base color and applying some green with black highlights later on as a second layer for my Christmas tree. So you can just do 1 layer if you think that it's too much work, because it is a lot of work to paint on like hundreds of these little bristles. You can also choose to add some tiny red and blue and multicolored dots. These are supposed to be ornaments on your tree just to make it look a little bit more festive. And I also opted to paint on a red garland that is kind of draping across some of the branches on my pine tree. I also painted on the yellow star that you see at the top. You can definitely trace that in before you paint it just to make sure you're not making any mistakes. And I also penciled in a holiday greeting, so I think I wrote Happy Holidays here, but you can write in whatever holiday greeting you choose. Moving on to the third and final card in today's episode, I was trying to achieve sort of an icy cave look. It didn't really turn out how I wanted it to, but I think it's a good attempt nonetheless. So I basically painted on this island shape in the center of my watercolor piece of paper after taping the borders with Scotch tape, and I think I used 2 layers of multicolors, so green, red, and yellow because those are Christmas colors. And then once that had completely dried with the assistance of a hair dryer, I went ahead and wet the white part that was around the island with a layer of water, and then slowly started adding some blue pigment to the edges of my piece of paper and letting that blue bleed towards the island, but also making sure to leave some white space around the island. Here we're trying to make it look like there's sort of an ice cave, so you want to start with a baby blue and then progressively add darker hues, so a darker blue, and then finally ending with a little bit of black in the corners just to intensify the contrast between the blue and the island. I really didn't like how that island turned out, so I took off as much pigment as I could just to make my holiday greeting visible. So you can, forego this step if you just don't make that island super dark and opaque to begin with. So just paint on a very light layer, making sure that the edges of the island are dark. Now, because this was supposed to be an ice cave, once that island had dried, I chose to write "Baby, it's cold outside" as my holiday greeting, but as always, you can choose to write whatever you would like in the center. Don't forget to peel the tape off the borders of your piece of paper, and we're all finished. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like this video, and check out my other Christmas card tutorials.